The Ryanair Chase is also on the day. Grade 1, 2 miles 5, Footpad 9 to 2, Monalee 5 to 1, 6 to 1 Min, former winner Underso 15 to 2, Frodon 8 to 1. Any number of these, Martin, I've mentioned could go somewhere else.
Yeah, the current exchange market suggesting that Footpad is likelier than Min to end up in the Ryanair. That's as it stands at the moment. Obviously, these things can change. Now, Footpad, as we know, if he was back to his very best of last season's Arkle, 9 to 2 could potentially, well, would look a very big price. I think you know, this season's form is somewhere below that, but it was a much better again last time out before he tied up late on behind Simply Ned. I've just got a sneaking suspicion we're going to see him back to something like his best at Cheltenham, and that would make him hard to beat.
Willie Mullins shares your enthusiasm.
Does he?
Yeah, because the horse suffered an overreach.
I'm massively out of date with these trainers.
But he suffered an overreach both times. He schooled him without hind shoes, and said that the horse has been a lot better in his schooling sessions. And you know, the Footpad was one of the horses that, when we visited Willie Mullins, that, you know, every horse's form is in the book, and what the trainer says about them is usually replicates what's in the book. Whereas he was one horse whereby last year he looked the dominant. He was the dominant force, wasn't he, as a 2-mile novice? This year he's been beaten twice from 2 runs, and Willie Mullins said, "I do expect more from him now."
It's an interesting point, and I would go as far as saying this: if he was back to last year's Arkle form, I think he will win, and that would make him, on that piece of form, one of the best value bets at this moment in time as we sit here 8 days before the festival. You know, I think last year's Arkle performance would be good enough to win the Ryanair.
Okay, right. Let's just have another look at the betting, if we can, on the Ryanair. So Footpad 9 to 2, Monalee 5 to 1, talk of Gold Cup, Min Champion Chase 6 to 1. Underso, Dave, year on year he turns up. He won it 2 years ago. He was turned over at odds on by Balco de Flow last year. We've only seen him once this year when he was running with distinction behind Altior and a Tingle Creek.
Yeah, what's he ever done wrong in his life, really? He used to fall. He used to fall, didn't he, when he was too enthusiastic? But look, he's a multiple Grade 1 winner. He's a fantastic horse. But the Ryanair serves to confuse every year. We used to have a thing when I was in the city. If we couldn't work out which way the dollar was going to go, we used to call it the Footpad approach, which meant F off over the pub and discuss. And that horse, you could do it for absolutely ages, couldn't you? You've already done it already. But you know, it's just an impossible race to, until you see what's actually running. I think it's impossible. But Monalee, Henry de Bromhead, he's got an ideal candidate for this race, and he says it might be a 3-miler.
What was he placed in an Albert Bartlett? He was placed behind Presenting Percy in last year's RSA Chase. He won a Flogas beating good horses last year. This is Monalee in the Red Mills Chase a couple of weeks ago. Would you love to see him turn up in the Ryanair?
I just can't. I think it's a no-brainer. I just don't think he stays the trip well enough for a Gold Cup. But
I think he'd be bang there if he ran it.
Yeah, absolutely, it's his race. I would be amazed, unless the owners have got an absolute deep-seated, long-standing desire or an aversion to flying Ryanair. I can't see why they would.
I also think with him, I just think this is the division where he's very good. Obviously, he was found out behind Penhill 2 years ago in an Albert Bartlett, and behind Presenting Percy. I think this would be just the division where, because it is a slightly weaker race in the Gold Cup anyway, regardless of stamina, I think he's not likely to be found out in this race. I think this is tailor-made for him personally.
The flag bearer at 2.5 miles. This
is the race. You know, the fact that we've got so many races, 28 of them at Cheltenham now.
Yep.
This is one of the races that just causes confusion, isn't it? We've got Monalee, Gold Cup or Ryanair, Frodon, Gold Cup or Ryanair, Road to Respect, Gold Cup or Ryanair. You know, and we've got Min, Queen Mother Champion Chase or Ryanair. So we're basically just trying to find a runner here, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, you get your money back, but the thing is, with most firms, but the race is priced up accordingly. It's such a confusing to work out which is actually favourite in this race.
When you look at that, if you take a chance on Footpad, though, if you take a chance on him, if he runs, probably Min doesn't and goes for the Champion Chase. Waiting Patiently is out. Ken Boy's probably going to go for the Gold Cup,
and quite rightly.
You know, you could end up being on a, if you take that punt, if you like, and on a Footpad, you could end up being on a very good bet.
Can I just mention Top Notch?
Yes.
I know Nicky Henderson, they all love him, but they all think he's slightly below top notch. His only recent disappointment over fences was behind Waiting Patiently in the Ascot Chase last year, and he then didn't run at Cheltenham, so maybe he was slightly off colour that day.
Yep.
Last time he ran at Cheltenham, he was beaten a length by York Hill in the JLT in 2017, a horse who on his day was absolutely brilliant. And I just think that he's a horse that is... You know, we know that he's probably not a champion, a superstar. People won't be talking about him in 50 years' time. But I think he's a very likely runner, and I can't see an awful lot wrong with him at this stage.
Absolutely right. He was placed in a triumph hurdle as well. I think we can go back to Leopardstown, though, and get the thoughts of both Kate and Gary. I just want to throw a couple at you. The Ryanair picture, and if I might, just squeeze one in there. The thoughts of Real Steel, were he to go for the JLT. I think he might run quite well, Gary.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, we've just been talking off air about the Ryanair here. Kate, I think so much depends here on which of Min or Footpad turns up, but you'd imagine only one of them will run and the other will go for the Champion Chase. If they were yours, I'm sure you'd love if they were. Which way would you go with the two of them?
I'd say Footpad probably here for the Ryanair, and Mint go to the Champion, but, you know, Willie Mullins is a genius and we'll leave that decision up to him.
Yeah, I think I'd be inclined to agree, and my thinking would be it'd be very hard to throw Footpad in against Altior after the way things have gone from this season, wouldn't it?
Yeah, things haven't quite gone probably the way the Mullins team would have liked, and he keeps getting those overreaches, and he's apparently been schooling without hind shoes on him, so he doesn't get those overreaches, and he's been good, and no, it looks like he could be there with a live chance.
Yeah, I think a peak form Footpad would be really hard to beat in this. Monalee, to me, that's a rock solid horse. I'd expect him to be in the frame if he pitches up here at the very least, rather than going for the Gold Cup. But you, I gather, think an old stager, one of the real stars of the game, might be able to have at least one last hurrah.
Definitely, he's a bit of a forgotten horse. Underso, like, he's run once this year and he was second to Altior in the Tyndall Creek, and you know, for a couple of strides he half had Altior off the bridle slightly, but we haven't seen him since, because obviously we've had such a dry winter and he loves to go the softer conditions, and you know, he was second in this race last year. He won it the time before. I don't think he's been out of the first two since 2016, or even joining the Willie Mullins team from France. So he's a really, I think he's a bit of the forgotten horse of the race.
Yeah, he was second to Balca de Flo, of course, last year. Balca de Flo has had a really disappointing season so far. It'd be hard, I guess, to see him bounce back, would it?
It definitely would be hard to see him bounce back. So, but I think, like the model consistency that Underso is, he could be thereabouts again.
Okay, Underso for Kate. I think Monalee solid each way, guys, though I'd be very wary of Footpad if he turned up. And just a word about Real Steel was a horse Nick was talking about there. He's in the mix, I think, for the JLT Novice Chase after his good win last time. He had a fall earlier on in the season, but in fairness to him, he's rebounded well from that, hasn't he, with those two wins?
He certainly has. He's been very impressive, and you definitely would have to think he'd be the leading Irish contender for the JLT.
Yeah, Defi de Soy, though, I'd imagine he's going to be tough to beat there, isn't he?
He certainly is, but it's going to be a great race to watch.
Okay, Robbie Power, does he ride Lost in Translation? I presume he'll maintain that partnership.
I presume he will, and actually one we forgot to mention there for the Ryanair is, I know Robert quietly fancies him because he's coming back after a bit of a break, is Fox Norton. He's was second to Altior and then second to Surname the last day, and you know, I think he goes straight for the Ryanair now.
Okay. Very interesting indeed. Kate Smith, Underso, guys. I think Monalee would be a solid each way pick for me in the Ryanair.
Thank you very much indeed, Kate and Gary Underso, who never runs a bad race, going for his second win in the Ryanair. Very quickly, you wanted to mention Fox Norton, who invariably missed the race last year, but when he turns up to Cheltenham, he runs massive races.
Yeah, he's got an exceptional Cheltenham record. I think they had a look at Altior in the Clarence House, didn't like what they saw, but he didn't have a hard race. Then he ran very well for a long way last time out, again in the Ascot Chase, and maybe just blew up a little bit. That was his first competitive race, really competitive race back. So I think he could outrun a big price.
Yeah, almost won a Champion Chase 2 years ago. Right.